There comes a point in life where a woman has to draw a line in the sand and declare who she is, not with words, but with the way she lives, the way she loves, and the way she carries herself. Too often, women have been told to settle, to shrink, to be grateful for crumbs of affection, as if they should feel lucky just to be chosen. But the truth is, she was never meant to be someone's second option, someone's backup plan, someone's almost. She is the standard. And when she remembers that, everything changes. The way she walks, the way she chooses, the way she demands the life and love she deserves. There is a quiet revolution that begins inside a woman the moment she realizes her worth is not up for debate. It's not tied to the way someone looks at her across the room, or the way they text her back, or the labels someone gives her when they feel ready. Her worth is not hanging in the balance of another person's approval. It was never dependent on whether she was chosen, admired, or validated. It has always been there, deeply rooted, unshaken, undeniable, and yet, for so long, she may have lived as if her value could rise and fall depending on who came and went from her life. She may have mistaken love for proof of being enough, attention for proof of being wanted, commitment for proof of being valuable. But life has a way of teaching us the same lesson again and again until it finally sinks in. Worth is not assigned by others. It is discovered within. The moment a woman remembers this, everything changes. She no longer lives like someone desperate to be seen. She lives as though she already knows she carries something extraordinary. When someone shows up and recognizes it, that's beautiful. When someone fails to see it, that doesn't make her shine any less. It doesn't make her voice softer, her presence smaller, or her light dimmer. It simply means they weren't capable of recognizing what stood before them. And that is not her burden to carry. For so long, many women carry the heavy weight of thinking they are too much or not enough, constantly reshaping themselves, editing parts of who they are, lowering standards, silencing desires, all because they fear rejection. But when a woman knows her worth, she realizes that rejection is not a reflection of her lack. It is simply redirection towards someone who can actually meet her. It's powerful when you stop asking, "Why wasn't I chosen?" and begin asking, "Why would I ever want to stay where I had to beg to be chosen?" That shift is where self-respect is born. She begins to see that chasing is not love. It is a plea for recognition. Begging is not love. It is desperation. Waiting endlessly is not love. It is denial. And love is too sacred, too precious, too life. Giving to be reduced to scraps handed out by someone who cannot see her fully. A woman who knows her worth does not play small in her relationships. She doesn't adjust herself into bite-sized pieces to be easier to digest. She doesn't dilute her passion, her standards, her voice, or her truth just to avoid being too much for someone. She embraces all of who she is, her softness, her strength, her flaws, her fire, and she lets the world decide whether it can handle her. When she reaches that place, she becomes magnetic, not because she's trying to lure anyone in, but because she radiates something most people long for: certainty. There is nothing more attractive than someone who knows who they are and refuses to compromise their essence. She no longer needs constant reassurance to feel beautiful, loved, or valuable. She knows she already is. And because she carries that quiet confidence, she attracts people who either rise to meet her or quietly fall away. She doesn't have to chase, she doesn't have to prove. She becomes the standard, the one who decides who earns the privilege of her time, her heart, her energy. So many women get stuck because they keep asking themselves, "Am I enough?" But the real question is, are they enough for me? When she starts asking that, the world around her looks completely different. That man who calls once in a while when he's bored, suddenly he doesn't look so appealing. That friend who drains her energy but never shows up when she needs them, suddenly she sees the imbalance clearly. That job that underpays her and undervalues her, suddenly she knows she deserves more. It is not arrogance, it is clarity. It is the realization that if she keeps lowering the bar for others, she ends up living a life beneath her potential. But if she raises the bar, even if it means fewer people can reach it, the ones who do will be worth everything. She learns to stop apologizing for having standards. She doesn't feel guilty for wanting consistency, loyalty, honesty, passion, or depth. She no longer tells herself, maybe I'm asking for too much. Instead, she realizes, I'm not asking for too much. I'm just asking the wrong person. That is the freedom that comes with knowing your worth. You stop blaming yourself for someone else's lack of effort. You stop bending yourself backward trying to make them comfortable. You stop excusing behavior that breaks your spirit. Instead, you ask yourself, what do I truly deserve? And you start acting in alignment with that answer. This isn't easy. It requires unlearning years of conditioning that taught her to prove herself, to earn love, to settle for less. It requires walking away from people she thought she couldn't live without. It requires silence when she would rather scream, patience when she would rather plead, strength when she would rather collapse. But every time she chooses herself, every time she sets a boundary, every time she says no to something beneath her, she reinforces the truth, I am enough as I am. That kind of knowing doesn't just change her relationships, it changes her entire existence. She starts to notice that life mirrors back what she believes about herself. If she believes she is not enough, she keeps encountering people who treat her that way. But when she knows her worth, she draws in people who recognize and honor it. It's not magic, it's alignment. You attract what you allow. You experience what you tolerate, and when she raises her standards, she raises her life. There's a difference between arrogance and self-worth. Arrogance screams, I'm better than you. A self-worth quietly says, I'm not settling for less than I deserve. And when a woman embraces that, she doesn't look down on others. She simply chooses not to lower herself anymore. She understands that her love is a gift, not a consolation prize. Her presence is a blessing, not a favor. Her time is valuable, not disposable. And when she truly knows this, she becomes someone who no longer fears being alone, because she knows being with the wrong person is lonelier than being by herself. The moment she realizes that solitude can be beautiful, healing, and empowering, she stops filling the silence with people who don't matter. She doesn't cling to the wrong hands just because she's afraid of being empty. She doesn't trade her peace for company. She understands that she is whole already, and love is not meant to complete her but to complement her. And only someone who sees her worth can add to her life without subtracting from it. There's a glow that comes with this realization. It's not always visible to the eye, but you feel it when you're around her. She doesn't beg to be seen, but you can't help but notice her. She doesn't demand attention, but she has it anyway. It's not because of what she wears or how loud she speaks, it's because she walks in the certainty of who she is. That is the kind of woman who becomes unforgettable. Not because she was flawless, not because she was perfect, but because she refused to abandon herself in a world that constantly asked her to. And perhaps the most beautiful part of knowing her worth is this: she stops being afraid of loss. She doesn't fear losing someone who can't value her, because she knows the real loss would be losing herself trying to hold on to them. She understands that the right people will never require her to beg, chase, or prove. They will see her, they will choose her, they will match her energy, and until then, she will stand tall, unshaken, knowing that being alone with self-respect is far better than being with someone who makes her question it. That is when she becomes unstoppable. She no longer wastes time convincing someone of her value. She no longer measures her beauty by how someone responds to her. She no longer bends under the weight of insecurity. Instead, she radiates the truth, She was always enough, she was always the standard, and she was never meant to be an option in anyone's story. And when she embraces that fully, she doesn't just change her relationships, she changes the way she sees herself forever. There is something deeply liberating in realizing that real love is not a competition. Too many times, people find themselves fighting for space in someone's life, trying to prove they are worthy of being chosen, as if love were a game with prizes and rankings. But the truth is, when someone truly sees you, when someone truly values you, there is no competition to be had. A woman who knows her place as the standard refuses to play that game. She refuses to audition for someone's affection, refuses to be placed in comparison with another, refuses to beg for what should flow naturally. She understands that if love is real, it does not make her feel like she has to earn her spot. It gives her peace, not anxiety. And in that truth lies her strength. Think about how many times people end up in situations where they are subtly competing without even realizing it. They compare themselves to the other women in someone's life, checking to see if they're prettier, funnier, more desirable. They measure their worth against what someone else brings to the table, as if the relationship is a contest where only the best wins. But what that does is strip away the dignity of love. Because love should not be about proving you're better. It should be about being seen exactly as you are. The moment she realizes this, she walks away from anything that makes her feel she has to fight to be noticed. When a woman refuses to compete, she is not being passive, she is being powerful. She is saying, if you cannot see me without comparing me, you do not deserve me. And that declaration changes everything. Because people who force you into competition are revealing something important. They are unsure, they are indecisive, they are still searching for validation themselves. A woman who is the standard does not settle for indecision. She does not wait around for someone to make up their mind. She does not allow herself to be placed on a shelf like an option, waiting to be picked when convenient. Her love is not a prize at the end of a race. Her love is the race. Her presence is the reward. To have her in your life should already feel like winning. There is an elegance in walking away from competition. It's not loud, it's not angry, it's simply a quiet refusal to play a game that was never worthy of her. She doesn't need to shout, "I'm better." She doesn't need to fight for space. She simply leaves the room, and in her absence, people realize what they've lost. The right person, the person who truly sees her, will never put her in that position to begin with. They will make it clear from the very start that she is not one of many. They will treat her as the only. Not because there aren't others, but because none of the others compare to her. But this kind of clarity requires courage. It means resisting the temptation to prove yourself. It means not falling into the trap of trying to outdo someone else for affection. It means standing still and saying, if you don't see me, I'm not moving. I'm not going to contort myself into who you want. I'm not going to chase, not going to beg, not going to compete. And sometimes that decision means losing someone. Sometimes it means they go with someone else. Sometimes it means the story doesn't unfold the way you wanted it to, but what she gains in return is far greater. Her self-respect, her dignity, her freedom. Because the reality is, if someone makes you compete for their attention, they were never truly yours to begin with. Love is not meant to be fought for against others. It is meant to be given freely, clearly, wholeheartedly. And when she embraces that truth, she no longer fears losing what was never meant for her. She trusts that what is hers will never require her to prove, compare, or fight. A woman who refuses to compete for love sends a powerful message to herself: I am already enough. There is no version of me that I need to outperform. There is no one I need to outshine to be worthy of affection. The right person will see me exactly as I am and choose me without hesitation. And that message rewires everything about how she approaches relationships. She no longer tolerates half-effort. She no longer waits for breadcrumbs. She no longer tries to impress someone who isn't giving her clarity. Instead, she becomes intentional. She invests in people who are sure about her. She invests in spaces where her presence is valued, not questioned. She invests in love that feels safe, not love that keeps her on edge. It's easy to think that competing shows strength, but in truth it shows fear. Fear that maybe you won't be enough. Fear that maybe you'll be replaced. Fear that maybe love will pass you by if you don't fight for it. But when she refuses to compete, she is declaring that she trusts herself and she trusts the process of life. She knows that someone else's inability to choose her has nothing to do with her value and everything to do with their vision. Some people cannot see treasure even when it is right in front of them. That doesn't make the treasure any less valuable. It only reveals the blindness of the person looking. Imagine the energy shift when she no longer wastes her time comparing herself to others. Instead of thinking, am I prettier than her, smarter than her, more interesting than her? She starts asking, do I feel valued here? Do I feel loved here? Do I feel respected here? And when the answer is no, she has the strength to walk away. That shift alone saves her years of heartbreak, because it means she no longer stays where her soul is being diminished. She no longer begs for a spotlight that was never meant to shine on her. She instead chooses spaces where she is celebrated, not tolerated. The beauty of this refusal is that it also protects her energy. Competing for love drains the soul. It makes you question your worth, doubt your beauty, silence your voice. It forces you into a constant state of performance, as if you have to be on at all times to keep someone's attention. That is not love, that is survival, and survival mode is no way to live. A woman who is the standard thrives because she saves her energy for people who pour back into her, people who give as much as they take, people who don't make her wonder where she stands. She refuses to burn herself out just to hold someone's gaze. She knows her eyes are too precious to waste staring at someone who looks away. This refusal also raises the bar for others. When she walks away from competition, she shows the world what she will and will not accept. And those who come after her quickly learn. If they want to be in her life, they must come with clarity, commitment, and certainty. They must make her feel safe, not anxious. They must honor her presence, not question it. She sets the tone, not because she's trying to control, but because she knows love deserves nothing less. And in doing so, she doesn't just find a partner. She finds someone who is aligned with her, someone who doesn't force her to fight, but instead fights alongside her against the world. When she refuses to compete, she redefines what love means for her. No longer is it about being chosen out of a lineup. No longer is it about being good enough to stay. It becomes about partnership, about two souls meeting at the same level, about mutual recognition. Love becomes less about desperation and more about connection, less about proving and more about being, and that kind of love doesn't just heal, it transforms. Her refusal is not rejection, it is redirection. It's the way she clears space for what she truly deserves. It's the way she communicates to life itself, I am ready for more, I will not settle for less, and life listens. Because when you stop chasing what doesn't choose you, you create room for what will. So she stands tall, not afraid of being overlooked, because she knows what is hers will never pass her by. She does not waste her tears on people who made her compete. She does not shrink herself to be chosen. She does not perform for applause. She lives fully as herself, and she knows those who are meant for her will see it, those who are not will pass, and both outcomes are a blessing. Because either way, she wins. She wins by never abandoning herself. She wins by never degrading her worth. She wins by walking away from anything that makes her feel like an option. She is not a contestant. She is not a placeholder. She is not a backup plan. She is the standard. And when she refuses to compete, she proves that love, when it is real, does not demand rivalry. It demands recognition. There comes a point when a woman realizes that staying in the presence of half-hearted effort is far lonelier than walking away to be on her own. She begins to see that love without depth, without intention, without consistency is not really love at all. It's convenience dressed up as care. And she was not born to be someone's convenience. She was born to be someone's choice. She was born to be someone's every day, not someone's sometimes. That realization becomes her turning point, because once she understands that love cannot sustain her heart, she refuses to keep drinking from an empty cup. She makes the decision that no matter how much she feels, no matter how much she wishes someone could change, she will not settle for effort that comes only in pieces, for words without action, for promises without proof. It is not easy to walk away, because half-effort often comes wrapped in moments that feel real. There are glimpses of connection, sparks of joy, fragments of passion that make her believe something deeper exists. She tells herself, maybe if I wait a little longer, they'll finally show up fully. She convinces herself that the bare minimum is a sign of something greater waiting just around the corner, and so she waits, she gives, she forgives, she tries harder. But eventually she begins to see the truth. Love is not meant to be built on maybes. A love that needs constant justification is not love that lasts. She realizes that no matter how much she pours in, if the other person only meets her halfway, the container will always remain half empty. And so, with trembling hands but a steady heart, she begins to release what does not choose her. She steps away, not because she stopped loving, but because she finally started loving herself enough to demand more. Walking away does not mean she didn't care. It means she cared too much to allow herself to wither in the shadows of someone else's indifference. It means she learned that love is not proven by how much pain you can endure, but by how much respect you can give yourself. To stay in a place where she is not fully seen is to betray her own soul, and she refuses to do that anymore. The courage to walk away comes from understanding that loneliness in the wrong arms is far heavier than loneliness on your own. She would rather face the silence of her own company than the silence of unanswered messages, empty apologies, or effort that only arrives when it is convenient. She begins to see the power in solitude, because solitude heals. Solitude restores. Solitude gives her the clarity to see that she does not need someone who shows up halfway. She needs someone who chooses her all the way, and until that person comes, she is enough for herself. This decision transforms her. When she no longer accepts half-hearted effort, she sends a clear message to the world. My love is not for sale at a discount. My loyalty is not to be taken lightly. My presence is not something you get to sample when it suits you. I am all in, and I expect the same in return. She no longer entertains situationships, almost relationships, or excuses dressed as commitment. She no longer holds on to people who only love her when it is easy. She no longer accepts late night texts when she deserves all-day consistency. Her standards sharpen, not because she is bitter, but because she is clear. Clarity is a gift, and walking away from half-effort gives her that gift. Suddenly, she sees who truly values her, and who only values her when they are lonely. She sees who comes to her out of love, and who comes to her out of convenience. She sees who invests in her growth, and who only invests in keeping her around. This vision, painful at first, is liberating, because when she knows who is genuine, she stops wasting her precious energy on those who are not. And she realizes that her energy, her love, her soul are too rare to be poured into cracks that cannot hold them. There is strength in silence after goodbye. At first it feels unbearable. At first the urge to check in, to answer, to try one more time will tug at her heart. But with every moment she chooses silence, she grows stronger. Because she remembers that reaching back for someone who only gave her half effort is like returning to a fire that already burned her. It may look warm from a distance, but up close, it only consumes her again. She learns to resist the pull of nostalgia because she now knows that memories are not the same as reality. Just because there were good moments doesn't mean the whole was good, and she deserves a love that is good in its entirety, not just in fragments. When she chooses to walk away, she also chooses to rewrite her story. She stops being the woman who waits for potential and becomes the woman who demands presence. She stops romanticizing what someone could be and starts accepting what they are. And if what they are is not enough, she moves on. Because love is not about sculpting someone into the version you need. It is about meeting someone who is already ready to give you what you deserve. She no longer plays the role of savior, fixer, or second chance. She is not a rehabilitation center for broken effort. She is a destination for wholehearted love, and as she walks away from half effort, something beautiful happens. She makes room for full effort. She creates space for the kind of love that shows up every day, not just when convenient. She opens herself to someone who doesn't keep her guessing, who doesn't leave her questioning, who doesn't make her doubt her place. Because the truth is, the right love does not confuse, it clarifies. It doesn't keep you in limbo, it grounds you. It doesn't make you feel anxious, it makes you feel safe. That is the kind of love she is making space for when she refuses half effort. The people who once gave her only pieces may not understand her strength. They may try to pull her back, offering the same crumbs as before, but she will not return because she knows now that every time she accepts less, she tells herself she deserves less, and she has learned too much to lie to herself again. She has learned that self-love is not always about bubble baths and kind words. It is about discipline. It is about walking away when it hurts. It is about saying no when every part of you wants to say yes. It is about keeping your standards high, even when you are tempted to lower them for the sake of temporary comfort. Her power is not just in walking away, but in staying away, in holding that line, in trusting that what lies ahead will be greater than what she left behind. Because life has a way of rewarding those who refuse to settle. When she chooses herself, life eventually sends someone who chooses her too. Someone who doesn't leave her wondering. Someone who doesn't need convincing. Someone who shows up all the way, and when that day comes, she will be grateful for every goodbye that once broke her, because each one led her closer to the love she truly deserved. Until then, she will not compromise. She will not bend herself into fragments just to fit into someone else's broken effort. She will not stay where she has to beg for consistency. She will not mistake attention for love. She will not allow half-hearted effort to take root in her life again. Instead, she will carry herself like someone who knows the power of a complete love. She will live as someone who understands that her presence is a gift too sacred to be wasted. She will continue to walk away from anything that does not meet her fully. And in doing so, she becomes unstoppable. She reclaims her heart, her power, her life. She no longer fears the silence, the absence, the loss. She knows that the emptiness left behind by half effort is not a void but a clearing, a space being prepared for something real, something whole, something worthy. And until it arrives, she will stand tall, strong, radiant, knowing that her refusal to settle is not a loss but a victory. Because, in the end, the greatest love story begins the moment she realizes she would rather walk alone than walk halfway with someone who cannot give her their all. There is something extraordinary about a woman who refuses to settle. She doesn't just elevate her own life, she elevates everyone around her. When she decides that she is the standard, that her love, her time, her energy, her dreams are not to be wasted on half effort, she becomes a force. Not because she shouts it from the rooftops, not because she needs to prove it to anyone, but because she embodies it in everything she does. The way she walks, the way she chooses, the way she says yes and the way she says no, All of it reflects a woman who has drawn a line in the sand and said, "I will not live beneath my worth." That kind of clarity is contagious. People see it, they feel it, and whether they admit it or not, they rise to it. She inspires by being uncompromising with herself. She inspires not by demanding respect, but by carrying herself in such a way that you cannot help but respect her. This is the difference between a woman who settles and a woman who sets the standard. When you settle, you shrink. You lower your expectations, you silence your voice, you dim your light in hopes that someone will choose you. But when you refuse to settle, you expand. You become someone who shows others that it is possible to live fully, to love deeply, and to still keep your dignity intact. People watch her and they realize, if she can hold herself to that level, so can I. She doesn't just change her life, she becomes a mirror for others to see their own strength. That's what happens when a woman steps into her true power. She doesn't just inspire admiration, she inspires transformation. But inspiring others is not her goal. She isn't walking around thinking, "I need to set an example." She's not putting on a performance, she's simply living in alignment with her truth, and that in itself is enough to light the path for others. There's nothing louder than authenticity. When you see someone live unapologetically, it awakens something in you, and that is why she is unforgettable. She doesn't force people to rise, she simply refuses to lower herself, and that naturally creates an atmosphere where others either step up or step out. This does not mean she is perfect. It does not mean she never doubts, never fears, never cries. But it means she never allows those emotions to dictate the standard she lives by. She may bend, but she does not break. She may pause, but she does not quit. She may stumble, but she does not stay down. And when people see her get back up again and again, they are reminded of their own resilience. Her life becomes a living example of what happens when you choose courage over comfort, dignity over desperation, purpose over pressure. What makes her inspiring is not just what she demands from others, but what she demands from herself. She doesn't settle in love, but she also doesn't settle in life. She doesn't stay stuck in jobs that suffocate her soul. She doesn't surround herself with friends who secretly envy her more than they support her. She doesn't cling to old habits that no longer serve her. Every area of her life reflects her refusal to settle. And the more she embodies this, the more her circle shifts. People who cannot handle her strength drift away, and people who are drawn to her energy gravitate closer. Slowly, her life begins to reflect the standard she set internally. This is why settling is so dangerous. It's not just about accepting less in one area of your life. It becomes a pattern. When you accept crumbs in love, you often accept crumbs in friendships, in work, in opportunities. You begin to live beneath your potential without even realizing it, and years later you wake up and wonder why you feel so empty, so disconnected, so unfulfilled. But when a woman stops settling, she doesn't just change her relationship status. She changes the direction of her entire life. She refuses to waste time where she is not valued, refuses to give energy where it is not reciprocated, refuses to shrink into spaces that cannot hold her full presence. That kind of strength is magnetic. And here is what makes her truly inspiring. She does it without bitterness. She doesn't walk around angry at the people who didn't give her what she deserved. She doesn't spend her life blaming those who failed to see her worth. She understands that not everyone is meant to rise with her, and that's okay. She carries no hatred, only lessons. She doesn't close her heart. She keeps it open, but she keeps it guarded, protected by the standard she has set. She teaches people how to treat her not with lectures, but with boundaries. And when those boundaries are tested, she reinforces them with action, not just words. That consistency shows the world that she is serious, that she will not bend just because it's easier to. Her refusal to settle also shows others that love does not have to come from a place of desperation. So many people rush into relationships because they are afraid of being alone. They cling to the first person who shows interest, regardless of whether that person is truly aligned with their soul. But she shows that waiting is powerful, that patience is not weakness, it is strength, that solitude can be sacred when it is filled with self-growth, self-love, and self-awareness. She teaches others that you are not behind if you are not coupled, that you are not incomplete if you are single, that you are not unworthy just because no one has chosen you yet. Her very life says, I am already whole. And that kind of presence is inspiring because it frees others from the chains of rushing, from the fear of missing out, from the panic of loneliness. When you look at her, you see someone who doesn't just demand respect in love. She demands respect in everything. And that becomes a standard not just for her, but for everyone who encounters her. She reminds men what it looks like to truly step up. She reminds women what it looks like to hold the line. She reminds friends what it looks like to truly support someone. She reminds colleagues what it looks like to lead with both strength and grace. She becomes a silent teacher without ever claiming the title, and that's what makes her unforgettable, because she inspires simply by being. And let's be clear, inspiring others doesn't mean everyone applauds her. In fact, many will criticize her. Some will call her too picky, too demanding, too high maintenance. Some will say she is arrogant, cold, or unapproachable. But she knows the truth. Those accusations come not from clarity, but from insecurity. People who cannot meet her standard often try to drag her down to theirs, but she doesn't budge, because she knows that the very things they criticize are the things that protect her from settling. She understands that being misunderstood is the price of being uncompromising, and she gladly pays that price because the alternative, betraying herself, is far too costly. Her inspiration also comes from the fact that she is not competing with anyone. She is not looking to be better than other women. She is not living to prove herself against anyone else. She is simply becoming the best version of herself, and that alone sets her apart. In a world where so many people are busy comparing, she is busy evolving. And that difference is what inspires others to look inward instead of sideways, to measure progress not by competition but by growth. Perhaps the most powerful part of her refusal to settle is the way it transforms her relationships. She no longer attracts people who only want fragments of her. She no longer entertains people who come half prepared, because her energy, her aura, her standard communicates clearly, come whole or don't come at all. And those who cannot rise to that level simply fade away, leaving room for those who can. And when someone finally does step forward, someone who matches her, someone who sees her, someone who doesn't just admire her but invests in her, that relationship becomes something unshakable. Because it was built on two whole people, not one person settling for less, and that is why she inspires. Because her story is not just about walking away, it's about what she walks toward. She walks toward a future where her worth is not questioned, where her love is reciprocated, where her dreams are supported, where her presence is valued. She doesn't settle for the familiar, she reaches for the extraordinary. And when people see her doing that, they realize they can too. They realize they don't have to stay in places that suffocate them. They don't have to settle for partners who only half love them. They don't have to accept friendships that drain them. They can choose better. They can be better. They can rise too. So when you see her, understand this. She was never trying to be the standard for anyone else. She was simply living as the standard for herself. And in doing so, she became an example, a guide, an inspiration. She didn't settle, and because she didn't settle, others now believe they don't have to either. That is her legacy, that is her power. She is not just a woman who knows her worth. She is a woman who shows others theirs. She is not just a woman who refuses to settle. She is a woman who teaches the world that settling is never the path to fulfillment. She is not a second option. She is not a fallback plan. She is the standard, and in that truth, she doesn't just live, she leads. She was never a second option. She was never a fallback. She is, and always has been, the standard. The sooner she realizes that, the sooner she stops tolerating half-hearted love, half effort, half life. And when she stands in that truth, she doesn't just change her relationships, she changes her destiny.